Welcome to Esoteric Thoughts. The first recorded miracle in the New Testament is told in John 2, verses 1 to 11, when Jesus turned water into wine at a wedding. Because this was Jesus' first public miracle, it is often considered one of the most memorable miracles to many Christians today, and to them proves his divinity. According to the biblical text, Jesus was invited to a wedding, and during the event, Mary told Jesus that guests had consumed all the wine. Jesus spotted 6 large stone water jugs and summoned several of the servants to fill the jugs with water and take them to the host of the wedding. The host took a sip from the jug and realized that the water had been turned into wine. Taking a step back from the biblical text, during this same very period in history, around 30 to 50 AD, we will see a very interesting and alternative explanation for this miracle by Ralph Ellis.
We have a number of these miracles within the Gospels which attract the faithful, and they don't necessarily make sense and people just believe them. But the whole point of my research is to put these stories back into the rational world, the real world. And I think we can do exactly the same with this turning water into wine. So this was at the wedding at Cana. But anyway, they have these water jugs which can be turned into wine. Now, in more rational terms, we have this exact same story from history. And one of the big mysteries of all my research and all of the theology that I did as a child and growing up and going to Sunday school and things of that nature is why nobody ever made this comparison before that I've heard of, because it's so obvious. But anyway, if we go back into the 1st century, there was a master mechanic known as Hieron of Alexandria. And Hieron of Alexandria was the sort of Leonardo da Vinci of the 1st century. So here's a guy back in this is how advanced and technical Rome was. Hieron of Alexandria, back in the 1st century, he was making mechanical masterpieces. So he made metal birds that sang. He made automatic doors. He made water pumps for like fire engines. He made a steam turbine back in the 1st century. All sorts of mechanical masterpieces. But these were made, a lot of them were made for entertainment, of course, the singing birds and all of this sort of business. It was for the entertainment of the monarchy and the aristocracy. And some of them were made for the temples. He made things that used to fly around the temples. It was, not just entertaining the people who went to temple, but also, showing them the power of the gods and so on by these tricks, you might call them. So they had these magical tricks to beguile the people who went to the temple with these magical tricks. But one of the tricks that he liked doing, and he made quite a few of these, I think there's about 5 or 6 different types, is he made trick jugs to turn water into wine. And we still have the original designs. This is well known about. So he made these trick jugs, and again, they were for the entertainment of the aristocracy. And they're quite technical. They're very brilliant. So you have different compartments inside the jug, and you have an air vent in the handle, and it's worked on siphonic action and differential pressure and water surface tension. And depending on whether you have your thumb over the little hole in the handle, you can either pour out wine or you can pour out water. Okay, so now to entertain your guests, you can turn water into wine. And that's exactly what they were doing, because the circumstance is just correct. Remember, forget the carpenter business. We've talked about that before. Jesus was a king. He was an important person, especially if he was an Edessan monarch, as we've said. And the Edessan monarchs were the richest monarchs in that region. Remember that Queen Helena of Edessa had the largest palace and the largest tomb in Jerusalem. She was the queen of Judea. She was the queen of the Jews in the AD 50s. And the Jesus character, if he was a son of Queen Helena, as I've sort of pointed out in my books, he would have been, again, the king of the Jews. He would have been very rich, very wealthy. Any wedding that he went to or was a part of at Cana, he would have had important guests. And this important aristocracy would have wanted entertainment. And one of the entertainments they always had at this time was the turning of water into wine to entertain your guests. And so we have this story from history. And it's not as if it's unknown. Anyone who's in the know of first century history and even first century religion ought to know that Hero of Alexandria had created trick jugs to turn water into wine. And then we have this story in the Gospels, which is exactly the same. So the real mystery here is not turning water into wine. The real mystery is why no one has highlighted the similarities between the known history of Hieron of Alexandria and the Gospel story. Why is that? Why the silence? I can't understand it. I can understand theologians keeping silent about it, but why aren't the historians mentioning this? And so I don't know. I've not found anyone else that's mentioned it before I started mentioning this back in 1997. Where is that in our history books? I've not seen it.